Hobbies. The things adults attempt to have before ultimately resulting to alcoholism. You know the saying, everyone needs a hobby? Well, personally, I'm not sure there's any truth behind that statement. Not only because I believe a human being can get by with a bag of chips and a few scratch tickets and be fully satiated, but also because I fully don't really understand the definition of a hobby. I mean, Google defines a hobby as an activity done regularly in one's leisure time for pleasure, but that seems way too vague for me. If someone were to tell you that their favorite hobbies are masturbation and cigarettes, you would promptly tell them that those aren't hobbies, but I'm not here to question Google. All that being said, it seems like everyone has a hobby nowadays, definitions be damned. And hobbies aren't just a thing you do alone in your basement anymore, because at the intersection of growing wealth disparity and social media obsession lies the age of the side hustle. Now the things we used to do to relax and express ourselves have become a joyless exercise in monetization. Oh, do you like playing video games? Why not stream that activity for 8 hours a day in order to chase the dream of a better life? Oh, you want to get into pottery? Why not throw down some wet clay on a spinning wheel and touch it sexually and why not suggestively play with some clay on a spinning wheel and film that for short-form content in order to chase the dream of a better life? Even if you're not actively making money with your side hustle, you are blowing up my feed with it. And to be fully honest, the majority of quote-unquote hobbies I've seen on this website are at very least silly and at the very most infuriating. So in order to get this hate off my chest and also to alienate and anger my fan base in a profitable way, I thought I would go down the list of common hobbies and make fun of all of them and call them stupid. Because I've learned that if I point my finger and laugh at other people, in some weird cosmic sense, it makes me feel better about my own shortcomings, and that's just, I think that's a new thing that I've discovered. Are you like me, a 20-something suddenly in charge of his own life despite the fact that you're not ready for that at all? Do you currently live in an underfurnished apartment because you know nothing about interior decorating beyond the scope of a college freshman dorm? Well, when it comes to quality wall art, have no fear because the good people over at Display have got you covered. Display offers unique metal posters designed to look snazzy and put together in a world where the bare minimum is often not met. They have quite literally a design for every interest in mind, and there's a lot of Snoopy stuff too if you're like me. I love Snoopy. They also have a foolproof damage-free hanging system using magnets that make it perfect for any person who's renting or just doesn't want to damage their walls when they hang up some art. We got Snoopy. I got this super dope Portal poster from Portal 2, which I love, and I got this slightly smaller Vertigo map layout from CS2 because it's the best map in the game. Most displays come with a finish of either glossy or matte, but you can also get a finish called Textra. They burned in the image, so it's like raised and bumpy. It's really good looking. All right, let's see if I can follow simple instructions. Already struggling because I can't read. Okay, here we go. All right, looking good. Now I gotta put the magnet on. Gotta press hard. Now I gotta pick which art I want. All right, I bet this is gonna be difficult and I'm gonna struggle really hard. It wasn't. It was super easy. Now it looks good. Hit the link in the description to unlock exclusive access to the best display deal before it's gone. Not applicable on limited edition, Lumino, and Textra, but it's still a good deal. Thank you to Display for making the walls of my apartment feel a little bit more like home. So let's just jump into it, I guess. So first, let's talk about the art people. The people who have dedicated their lives to the art form of doing art, despite the fact they live in a capitalistic society. Normally, every city has these local art pop-ups or bazaars, where you're basically getting a front row seat to view every art school dropout in the region. These markets exist to help struggling artists sell their art, but really they exist to let you waste a little time before brunch on Sunday. You wake up, grab a coffee, and then spend a few hours trying to, you know, support your local artist. But then you look at the art and you realize there's a reason why you don't recognize any of the names scribbled in the corners. And then you look at the price tag and you want to politely ask the artist standing next to the art what gives them the fucking right. I mean, first of all, we have the straight up amateur artists, like the people who like paint and make sculptures and shit. Listen, I understand there is a fine line between painfully derivative and horribly original. But by going to these art fairs, I'm beginning to realize that amateur artists have never walked that line properly. They're either on one side or the other. It's either a douchey white boy ripping off a Basquiat for the millionth time, or it's someone just doing a mass-produced painting of a city skyline of whatever city you're in so you can hang it up in your living room when you're a tourist, or like those goddamn digital outline paintings. So you know what I'm talking about, where you take a regular picture of someone standing there and then you put it in Procreate and then just do outlines and do the bucket fill thing. It's like the worst form of art I could think of. And somehow they're trying to sell this shit for $75 a pop. Browsing the visual art at these fairs is like sitting in on a therapy session. It is ego run amok. There is nothing worse than someone who isn't deep on any level attempting to appear deep. I much prefer the scribblings of a mad artist because at the very least there's a base level of humanity behind that. But the performative art of someone throwing a bunch of paint on a wall and saying like it's cause my dad hit me and they're trying to appear really deep when really it's just fucking bullshit, it makes me very upset. Just unbelievably embarrassing to be a part of. And I don't think I mentioned it earlier, I don't think I made a big enough deal about the prices at these fairs. Like someone will paint a 6x12 watercolor and it'll be kind of pretty in like a TJ Maxx kind of way, and they'll be asking like $400 for that? 400 US American dollars for something that was recreated in the booth over? And I know what you're thinking, oh Tucker, just because you never learned how to paint properly or learn how to draw, you're just being harsh, you're dumping your insecurities onto someone else. And I say to you, you've all seen my painting abilities, you've seen my painting, and it's been valued at over $300,000, so I know what I'm talking about. Hobbyists, this hobby sucks. Next on the bullshit list of art hobbies, we got photography. A word that I cannot say. I say photography, I don't say photography. You're gonna have to deal with that. At least visual artists are making something new. Photography is just capturing what's already there. Like we're both looking at the same thing and you just decided to take a picture of it, and that just seems like using my eyes with extra steps. I have a lot of beef with photography people, so I'm literally just gonna list out every single one of my grievances I have with them. First of all, black and white does not make something cooler. If I've learned anything about capturing images, it's that making it black and white is like the laziest way you could do that. Takes a lot of the guesswork out of color grading and aperture shit when you're dealing with a binary reality. And I mean, yeah, a black and white photo of a lawn chair is mysterious, but also that looks like every other photo of a black and white lawn chair. You can't really find a new angle on that. But I also understand that photography has changed historically. Not to sound old and curmudgeonly, but back in the day, photography took a lot more skill than it does today. You'd have to know how to like operate a mechanical camera and know what the fuck was going on with film. You had to go in one of those silly rooms that's all red and you'd have to dip shit in liquid and stuff. It was very complicated. Now you just whip out your iPhone and take a picture of some broken glass on a sidewalk and boom, 500 Instagram likes off the rip. Nowadays, 85% of every photo taken on Earth is taken with a smartphone. And if you're using a DSLR or whatever the fuck they're called to take pictures, at this point, I don't know why you would do that. Phones have become literally the perfect thing to take pictures with. It's like the main selling point of phones and commercials nowadays is how good the camera is. You're paying $800 for a fucking camera that doesn't let you text people. It's 2024. That doesn't make any sense. Now, I will say, as someone who obviously doesn't know how to key a green screen or do anything with lighting, there is some impressiveness in that aspect. Like knowing how to calculate the shutter speed and the aperture and the f-stop, like that weird triangle, like that's all very complicated and very annoying. And if you can make it work, that's fantastic. But like, how many pictures are you gonna take where I have to compliment you on that, my guy? All we're left with is a Facebook page full of a bunch of pictures you took of your 2011 Golf GTI. Like, that's cool. Try something else maybe. But in terms of monetization, you can make a lot of money, or a good amount of money being a photographer. You can shoot weddings, you can shoot car shows, you can shoot pretty much any event someone wants their picture taken at. And if you're like any photographer that I knew in college, you can just walk up to pretty girls and say, hey, you look like a model and I'm a professional photographer, and then you get them half naked in your living room and take pictures of them until they slowly realize you're not a professional photographer. That's a big thing. That's a big part of this. Very creepy. If you're a pretty girl in college, don't let them do that to you, because they're gonna do that to you. Next up, poetry. I have a lot of beef with poetry as a hobby. You might not have to take a class on how to take shitty photos anymore, but you're definitely not going to appreciate poetry without being brainwashed by academia. Now, I'm going to be straight up, and this is going to be shocking because I look like a cigarette, but I enjoy poetry to a degree. Like the lines, I didn't know my favorite color until she said it, and I hope you never think about anything as much as I think of you, have made me cry at 3 in the morning. Dead stop. But that being said, the line between good poetry and bad poetry is about 500 miles across. How does one write a poem without sounding like an egotistical douchebag? Answer, it's impossible. Poetry is by far the most forefront fighter in the war of performative importance. Sometimes people make it work. Sometimes poetry can be beautiful and capture a moment that I did not know could be put into words. I mean, it's all subjective, but if you want a good taste of what I'm talking about, look up Richard Sicken, or however you fucking say his name. That dude he has said some shit that changed my life. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have something like Gabby Hanna's poetry. Now, I'm gonna be really sensitive about Gabby Hanna. It's been said that poetry book has been rushed out, and she went through a mental health crisis, and apparently she's doing better recently, so nothing bad about Gabby, but the poetry was dog shit. For example, let's take her poem, Relative, which will be put up on the screen now. Give that a look over. Do you see what I'm talking about in terms of like self-importance? Like to a lot of people who write poetry, you're writing down shit that makes people say, yeah, obviously, but you put a bunch of cool spaces in between the words. So that makes it good, I guess. And then there's slam poetry, which I cannot physically get. Editor, if you could put up just like a 3-second clip of the cringiest slam poetry you could find, that'd be great for me.
She stroke my ego till I come to my senses.
It's a really fine line to walk, poetry. I understand that everyone has to start somewhere, but if you start out as a douchebag, It doesn't seem like you're able to get out of that hurdle. I feel like in order to be good at art, the entirety of your life, you have to think you're bad at art. Does that click? Does that make any sense? Speaking of the douchiest of douchebags, let's talk about local musicians. I, for one, am split on this hobby because some people just love playing music live, like the town busker who's in the middle of your town playing the guitar, or that one local musician who's, you know, that girl in the back of the bar playing songs because she got a gig. I always try my best to give those people my full attention because I know it's extremely hard, and also it doesn't seem like they're doing this for anyone but themselves. But then you have somebody who taught themselves an instrument for literally all of the wrong reasons, and those reasons are, in order, to get laid, to seem interesting, or to be better than others. These are the people who gatekeep an entire instrument, usually a guitar, based on the way you play it or the brand name of the guitar you have. And for the love of Christ, I don't know what you're supposed to do with your face when you play an instrument, but I do know for a fact that you should not actively be trying to look sexy. I can't watch clips of people playing guitar anymore because everyone's always trying to do fucking crazy shit with their face. Just bobbing their head like a little cute smirk, maybe stick out. I'm gonna do an example, and this is gonna pain me. Like, what are you doing? Stop doing all of that. Cut the shit. You're playing a song that you looked up the tabs for on YouTube. You are not John Mayer. And I know what I'm talking about on this one. I play piano. I play piano pretty good. I can twinkle the ivories like a motherfucker. Now, I don't have a piano in this apartment to prove it. My apartment's too small to have a piano in it, and that's pretty convenient for me, but you're just gonna have to take my word for it. But I just know when I'm playing the piano, I'm doing my best to make my face not look like I'm trying to fuck everyone in the room, okay? Okay, let's step away from art people, because I'm sure they're all very mad at me, and we have a lot of people to piss off today. Let's move down the list to the good old textile hobbies. Now, textile hobbies used to be quaint. They used to be cute. Just a grandma sitting in a rocking chair working on mittens while she's watching her stories. But something switched in the 21st century. Hipsters gentrified our grandparents. And I don't know if hipsters is still... Hipster has not been a word since, I think, 2008. I don't know why it's still in my Rolodex of words to call people. All communities. All communities have gentrified our grandmothers. Now knitting, crocheting, and needlepoint arts at large are the domain of cool kids with patchwork tattoos. And it's fine, I guess. It's like, it's a good time waster, and it's, you know, it feels good to get good at something over time. But honestly, the worst part about knowing someone who's really into needlepoint or crocheting or knitting or whatever the fuck is pretending like you want a gift of a scarf. It's pretending like, hey, thank you for making me a scarf, and you gotta act really excited about it. Like, I understand this took you an extremely long time to make, and you probably made a lot of mistakes, and it was very frustrating, but hey, have you ever seen me wear a scarf? Have you ever seen me do that? Even if they get really good at it and they're making like full-blown knitted sweaters, I have to be honest with you, it's very hard to pull off a knitted sweater as a heterosexual dump of a man. If I go back home to Massachusetts and wear a nice knitted vest at Thanksgiving, my relatives are gonna call me a fairy and throw beer cans at my head. Now, what you can do is knit me a cute little plush animal. If you want to knit me a little Yoshi, where now we're talking. No one can judge me if that thing's on my bed. But in terms of the hobby itself, the input to output ratio in terms of time and gifts you have at the end of it, it seems very off. I understand the majority of hobbies is to waste your time in order to get something incrementally beneficial, but at that point, why not learn how to build a computer? I need computers. You know, I don't need a fucking pair of mittens. Another category of the hobbyist is the tradesman, the man who does trade for a hobby. If you want a barometer of how great our lives are now, just look at our hobbies. I know it's cool to say, you know, we're in end-stage capitalism, society is crumbling, the empire's falling, but by every conceivable metric, this is the best time to be a human, is right now. We have more money, we live longer, we eat food all the time, we don't have to carry our parents' blood feuds sometimes. If I see a member of a family from my neighborhood when I was a child out in Brooklyn, I'm going to have to fight them to my death. But of course, in modern society, we still have a few problems. In the past, backbreaking agriculture was it was a necessity. Now, apparently, it's a way to blow off steam. Taking agricultural work and turning it into a hobby is so uniquely American. It's like saying, I'm bored, I'm gonna do something that's gonna inconvenience me and everyone around me. I mean, beekeeping, for one, is a weird one. That's a weird one that people sign up for voluntarily. Gardening is a boring hobby, but at least you're getting food out of it. But beekeeping is like gardening, except imagine if all the carrots you were growing were plotting to kill you. Maybe you get delicious honey, or maybe an entire 500 deep family of insects go hog wild and turn you into a pincushion. And not only that, when those bees get out, that is going to be a neighborhood-wide issue. 10,000 bees swarm in a slice of Americana. Approximately 2 million Americans are allergic to bee stings, and 100 Americans die from bee stings every year. And you're doing all this for some honey? For some eczema-calming beeswax? Just go to the store. What's wrong with the store, honey? Also, I think it's very funny that vegans won't eat honey because they think it's unfair to the bee. The bee does not like you, honey, sweet pea. The bee's gonna sting you if it can, so I just thought thought that was funny. Next up, we have woodworkers. Not only is my father a lifelong carpenter, but he also was in a cool motorcycle accident when he was 24 or something like that, and he can't use his arm. So he's a handicapped woodworker, so I know what I'm talking about. Some of us took a shop class in high school for an easy A, slapped together a spice rack, and then just called it a day on woodworking. But a few of those kids got more than an A. They got a personality. Do you need to purchase an item like a toilet paper holder or a cutting board? That would make you a stupid idiot in the eyes of a common woodworker. Why pay $20 for something that you need when you could pay $17 for parts and 8 hours worth of labor to make the same exact thing? That's a good deal. The majority of these men can be found in sawdust-laden basements or garages, avoiding their families by whittling wood. The cost-benefit ratio of woodworking is also very funny to me because it is an insanely dangerous hobby. Even though wood is an insanely soft and malleable material to work with, the odds of you getting extremely fucked up while working with it is very high. There are about 720,000 woodworking injuries a year, and about 30,000 of those come from table saws alone. And I'm not just talking about running your hand over a spinning blade, although that does happen a lot. I don't know if I know this because my dad's a woodworker or if it's common knowledge, but if you put a piece of wood into a spinning blade wrong, that thing will propel back to you at the speed of sound and put a hole in your chest. It will kill you immediately. And that happens all the time. And you were just trying to do what? Build a key rack? Bad hobby. Bad hobby all around. And speaking of woodworking, there's a bunch of hobbies that I will just call the building hobbies. You don't have to risk your fingers for the thrill of building. Man-children around the world have gotten into advanced Legos as their hobby. You can now buy Lego sets that cost as much as an iPhone, like this $679 version of the Titanic containing over 9,000 pieces. Or you can relive your childhood and buy like the Hogwarts set from 2002, and that's gonna cost $1,000 on eBay minimum. Personally, I don't know why Legos were ever marketed to children, because some of these things can get really complicated and you're gonna need a parent at the very least. But that being said, being a full-grown adult on your hands and knees building a Lego Death Star in your living room is not a great look. And it's fun though, I get it. It's like a 3D puzzle. I like Legos too. It's just a shame that there's such a childish vibe to the whole ordeal, because it is very childish. I mean, it's like, it's for children. Legoland is for children. But so is Pokemon, and a lot of older people fuck with that. So that's, yeah. Another type of builder, and probably the worst type of hobby you could have, is being the train set guy. What a tough cross to bear. Building model train sets is on a different level. This is Truman Show shit. This is asexual, but there wasn't a word for that in the 60s, so you got married and then got really into trains type shit. I've done a little bit of research, and this hobby goes so much deeper than just building a train. I mean, first of all, you have to pick which train you want, and that is a way more complicated issue than you and I could ever conceive. And then you gotta decide its path through your wood-paneled basement. And then you gotta set up the area around it, and that is by far more complicated than the train itself. Is this going to be a trip through the Pacific Northwest, or is it going to be a lovely scenic route through the New England trees? After about 9 years and about $10,000 to $20,000, your perfect train set is set up in the basement. You are now unemployed. Everyone in your life has left you, and but you have the train running on time, so that's something. All right, I'm running out of time, and there are a lot of hobbies, so I'm just gonna do a lightning round. Historical reenactors. What the fuck are we doing here? I don't know how someone gets into this hobby, let alone makes it the majority of their personality. I mean, this could either mean a Civil War reenactor, and those dudes are all fucking weird. I'm not saying you're racist, but you decided to fight for the Confederacy in the reenactment. And could you explain that without mentioning black people? And then we have the people who volunteer to walk around those weird, like, towns where everyone pretends it's 1790 and they stay in character the whole time. And they stay in character all day, and that is somehow a life that they have chosen for themselves. It seems draining, but I guess we all sometimes wish to live in a simpler era. But I don't know how many blacksmith demonstrations I could do without taking that hot coal poker and putting it through my fucking eye. Then we have the collectors, a category of hobbyists that is so large it's hard to put a blanket statement over. We have the card collectors. This could be baseball cards, it could be trading cards, anything with a face and stats on it. At the end of the day, this is just a gambling addiction where you don't have to drive to a casino. Just opening packs and hoping you won't have to pay rent this month because there's a shiny Charizard or whatever the fuck's going on. And then we have item collectors, like people who collect Funko Pops or gotcha balls, whatever those things are. And once again, this is gambling, or at the very least, a search for rarity that only ends in disaster. Let's say you collect Beanie Babies and you find a rare Beanie Baby. That Beanie Baby's only worth a lot because other people give a shit about Beanie Babies, which is why Beanie Babies aren't worth money anymore, because no one gives a shit about Beanie Babies anymore. And it's also why that Funko Pop that has a rare defect in your closet is going to be worth less than the box it came in within 20 years. And then we have rare clothing collectors, which I talked about them already. People who go for like box logos and like one-off Louis Vuitton collabs, and those people suck on an unbelievable level that I don't have time to go into. And then we have all the watchers, like the whale watchers and the bird watchers and the people watchers, all seem perverted to me. Sex watchers, that's not really a hobby, that's a fetish, but it's on the same level. The general hobby of watching nature is insidious. Looking at things without their consent makes my stomach feel yucky. I mean, in its essence, it's one of the least invasive hobbies you could have, and it seems like a good way to waste time. But to sit in a park with a set of binoculars in my face while people walk by, you look like a creep. You look like a pervert. And finally, we have the gamers. I'm a gamer, and I'm gonna talk about me. Gaming used to be an innocent indoor kid hobby. It used to be fun. Now we have people out here pretending like it's a fucking sport, and I don't fuck with that at all. Esports? Sure. And chess is hand-to-hand combat. I mean, it doesn't help that if you win a gaming tournament nowadays, you walk away with a life-changing amount of money. And the fact that most competitive games have been whittled down to their bare essence so that your entire night is ruined when a kid in Slovakia calls you the N-word in a CS2 lobby. As a competitive gamer myself who spends a lot of his time losing his mind because his teammates suck, I understand that this is probably one of the worst hobbies you can have. It's good in terms of, you know, socializing with other fellas your age, and it also gives you a vague sense of community, but it's not good for your mental health. It takes up way too much of your time, and every video game out there nowadays is just designed to suck every dollar out of your pockets possible. But to be fair, there's nothing better than that one round you clutch up after playing for 6 hours a day, so I'll be firmly addicted to this hobby for the rest of my life. Alright, those are all the stupid hobbies that I thought were worth talking about. If I missed any that you have that you would like to be pissed off about, let me know down in the comments below and I'll do my best to make fun of it. Like, comment, and subscribe. New videos every Wednesday and Saturday. Does content creation count as a hobby? Because it is a job for me, but it started as a hobby. It's a bad hobby. Don't do it. Your brain falls apart, obviously.